Mann's jelly worms. I'm going to go over this as fast as possible because there's a lot to cover. So how all this started was about a year ago. I was wanting to learn something new. These were classic plastics that came out forever ago. They're famous. They've been around forever. They've caught a ton of fish, and I really wanted to learn how to use them because I'd never caught any fish on them. And I've been using them for about 6 months, and I've been catching fish. And then my students started to say, hey, do you actually catch fish on those? And yeah, I do, like a lot. And I want to show you how I do it. So first and foremost, I'm going to start at somewhere around like when it starts to warm up in the spring, and then go from there till it gets cold in the wintertime. So let me first go over colors. They're all named after jelly. They're called jelly worms because it's like grape jelly, strawberry jelly, watermelon jelly, blackberry jelly, stuff like that. So they're all named after fruit. And supposedly they smell like fruit too. I don't really think so, but whatever. So let's start with the first rig that we're working. So the very first rig that was working was this one here. This is they call it blackberry, but it's a black worm. And this is a 5/0 heavy wire wide gap hook. It really should be a 4/0. The 5 is just a touch too big. First rule of thumb with these, do not go any bigger than a 5/0 hook. Do not go any bigger than a 5/0 hook. Unless you're doing a pumpkin head jig, then it's okay to go up to 5s and 6s with the pumpkin head. But anyway, the very first one was weightless. Absolutely no weight at all. And throwing it in 0 to about 5 feet of water and using it like a big zoom trick worm, but just slow. The other rule of thumb you need to remember with these, when in doubt, chill out. When in doubt, chill out, slow down. Okay, these big worms are very limber, very loose, and they have this sort of crazy undulating motion in the water. They're not a curl tail. So heavy weight doesn't do you any good. It just not racing to the bottom and curling all the way down. It has this curls in on itself like a snake in the water. So it's important that it not have huge weight or huge hooks. That kills the action of the bait. Anyway, I was just twitching it, and then 1-2 cadence. Twitch, 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 like that. And that produced a lot of bites. As the summer went on and I needed to fish a little bit deeper over the top of grass, and as I started to reach out into Sam Rayburn Reservoir, Texoma, places like that a little bit deeper, I needed to get down to that, 6 or 7 feet, 8 feet. Then I went to a screw lock hook with a baby, like tiny belly weight. I think this is like a 364 or 132nd, something like that. It weighs very little, and it's a heavy wire hook. Because it's a screw lock, then it does a great job keeping this big worm on there when you're casting. So the screw lock works really well. Also, because this is not a straight down shoulder or even angled forward a little bit shoulder, which is a problem I had on the 3/0 here, then because it's not like that, then it comes through these trees and sticks and sort of wiry, viney vegetation really well. So this was another rig that worked very well. Caught a lot of fish on this. Now as I moved into the fall, then the super shorty Texas rig kind of took over. And also I needed to do the weightless rig, but I needed it to be very streamlined because the vegetation was very heavy at this point. So this is the purple grape. This of course is a great color. I love the red color, the strawberry color as well for this. And you notice that there's a little bit darker hue up at the head. I'm dipping that in blue dip and dye. It gives the bait a little bit of a head, and fish seem to go after the head of it a little bit better. This is a 5/0 true turn. 4/0 true turn does a very good job as well. It's a very light wire hook, and of course you see it's completely streamlined in the bait. So this rig came through heavy vegetation and sticks and treetops and big logs and like wiry vegetation and lily pads and stuff. It came through that very easily, effortlessly. I'll admit the wide gap ones do hook up a little bit better. The heavy wire hooks sink a little bit faster if you need them to do that. But the true turns are very slim profile, comes through the vegetation, seems to come through the vegetation better, and they don't sink very fast because these true turns are very light. Even, I think this is either a 4 or 5/0 that I've got on here, and it weighs very little. So this is a very neutrally buoyant, slow sink, great for shallow water. Now the slowest sink by far is the light wire 3/0. Now, as I progressed into the fall, super short, scaled way down Carolina rig. This is a brass 3/16 ounce weight, which is very, very light for a Carolina rig. Most is 3/4, 1 ounce, stuff like that. Half would be considered light. This is 3/16 ounce, very, very light. I've got 2 red beads here. I always use 2 beads on these Carolina rigs. Clear work just fine too. Doesn't necessarily have to be red beads, but it is important that this be brass. It's by far the loudest, makes a lot of noise. You'll notice that on my Carolina rig with these big foot-long worms, if you've got a 3-foot leader and a foot-long worm, it's just, the rig becomes almost impossible to cast, and it doesn't get you any more fish. Notice that I went with about an 8 inch to a foot, 8 to 12 inch leader. That's all you need, no more than 12 inches. I went to a light wire 3/0 hook, little bitty light wire 3/0 hook. This is the watermelon red metal flake color, and I've got it dipped about 3 or 4 inches. A good portion of the worm is dipped in chartreuse dip and dye, and that super short Carolina rig also produced a lot of fish. Now, as I got later in the, I was catching fish on this all the way up into mid-December. By far the deepest rig, and the one that looks totally different than all the other rigs in the water, is this one. It's a pumpkin head. Now this is a 6/0 just because that's what they had at the time. 5/0's probably a little bit better, but this is going to jump up off the bottom and set like this. And because of how limber the plastic is on this, then it's going to jump up and then do all sort of craziness in the water. It looks fantastic. This one here, if you can get this rig around rocks in the fall or even in the late summer, hold on, okay? With all of these, it would help to use braid, 20-pound braid. With a lot of these, in particular, this one here, the weightless, the belly one that I showed you, the stripes were impressively hard. I mean, fish came after them like a great white shark. With some of these, the weightless rigs, particularly with the very, very light wire hooks, a lot of times fish, you didn't even really feel the bite. The fish just kind of swims off with it. And so you have to watch your line. You have to watch it jump. You have to watch it swim off to the side. And then you need to take up a lot of line really quickly. So it helps to have a nice 7-foot rod, and it helps to have like 20-pound braid so that the action of these worms really comes through. And so you can get some dynamite hook sets on these too, because a lot of times, by the time you realize the fish has already got it, this fish has already eaten a foot-long worm, and you need to get that hook set or it's going to spit it. So that right there, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different rigs in 3 different colors on how to use these big 12-inch Mann's jelly worms. It does work. They do catch fish. All of these will work for you. So as soon as it starts to get hot, all the way into December. Try it.